Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome back to Deathcore Weekend 2022. If you tuned in to the Fit for an Autopsy review that went up just a couple of days ago, you will already know that I have decided to call this weekend Deathcore Weekend 2022. Why is that? Well, it is because there are so many fucking deathcore albums coming out specifically this weekend. And guess what? All of them are actually kind of cool. But with all due respect to Fit for an Autopsy and to every other deathcore band releasing new music this weekend, the coolest cat of the bunch is none other than Elegy, the latest studio album from Shadow of Intent. Since forming nearly a decade ago as the Halo-themed side project of Chris Wiseman and Ben Durr, the band has since grown immensely, becoming one of the most popular and ambitious and exciting bands in the entire deathcore genre. With their third studio album, Melancholy, standing as a near-perfect assembly, a near-perfect union of killer songwriting, emotionally challenging and vulnerable lyrics, great production, great orchestration, great everything, really. It was just a fantastic fucking record. I would honestly go as far as to credit Melancholy, and in turn Shadow of Intent, with having really changed my perspective on the deathcore genre. Which of course brings us now to Elegy, the band's fourth studio album and quite possibly their biggest and most highly anticipated album to date. So far, the album has received near universal acclaim, with even the most negative reviews conceding that what Shadow of Intent have accomplished here is nothing short of truly unique, perhaps even a game-changing moment for the deathcore genre. And spoiler alert, I kind of maybe sort of agree with that. I mean, wow. I mean, what else can really be said after listening to Elegy? Just wow. While similar to Melancholy in a lot of ways, Elegy is ultimately a much more ambitious album, a much more cinematic album. There are more bells and whistles. There's more money being put into the production value of the record. Horns, strings, guitars, drums, they sound a lot better. They're crisp. They pop in the forefront of the sound. They dazzle. And the music itself is a little bit more spicy and versatile and provocative and, of course, the B word, brutal. For instance, the opening track, ironically titled Farewell, kicks this album off with a towering display of flesh god apocalypsean symphonic death metal. Guitars, percussion, and bass work together in crippling unison to devastate and batter the mind, all the while string quartets and keyboards and horns and operatic choirs elevate this to a level of spectacle normally reserved for symphonic power metal. It makes for a remarkably intense listen, and a downright fucking epic one as more melodic hooks and guitar licks are brought into the mix. Similarly, The Coming Fire packs the apocalyptic brutality that I honest to God would expect of modern-day cattle decapitation, complete with gnarly grooves, hellish lyrics, and a surprisingly very poignant and evocative chorus. Not to mention one of Ben Durr's best vocal performances on the entire record. The way he belches out Burn in the pre-chorus just makes me want to absolutely go mental. Speaking of killer vocal performances, there's also tracks like Where Millions Have Come to Die and Blood in the Sands of Time, which feature Phil Bozeman of Whitechapel fame and Chuck Billy of Testament fame, respectively. The former track is without question one of the most unforgiving and bloodthirsty things that Shadow of Intent has ever delivered, with Phil and Ben screaming and yelling and howling as if the fate of the earth depends on it. All the while, the latter track goes in a much more dreadful and ominous direction. There are walls of almost blackened death metal intensity, and there are a lot of heavy grooves and a lot of anxious string and orchestral sections complemented nicely by Ben Durr's monstrous vocals, and of course Chuck Billy, who is straying from his usual shtick and register, opting for a more crazed kind of performance. He sounds like he's frothing and raving like a prophet gone mad. I'm also really loving Of Fury, which sounds like the mutant freak child of the Black Dahlia Murder and Cradle of Filth, especially with some of its more sinister grooves, its very venomous vocals contrasted with those super tight, soaring, melodic death metal guitar licks. And though a touch bloated and arguably even derivative of Rivers of Nile, I'm also really loving the album's three-part title track, Elegy, which also closes out the album. There's a particular moment right around the 3-minute mark of Elegy Part 3 Overcome that just rocks my fucking world. It's an absolute flurry of exciting shred metal that seamlessly transitions into a surprisingly really bouncy and exciting kind of modern thrash metal riff. The kind of stuff that you could absolutely expect to find on a Revocation record. And then there's the concept, then there's the lyrics, the storytelling of Elegy. This is where Shadow of Intent truly does go above and beyond the call of duty. Straying from the sci-fi themes of older records and from the no pun intended melancholy of melancholy, Elegy instead pulls from history, from real events. Writing here in a press release, Elegy reflects on the fallen of modern history's darkest conflicts, inspired by facts, biographies, and testimonies of those who were unfortunate enough to witness them, as well as the constant racing for power and resources that diminishes sovereignty worldwide. In another press release, Shadow of Intent specifically talk about the song From Ruin We Rise, where they write, "This song speaks about the inhumane suffering endured in the Ukraine, surviving mass famine, slave labor, and essentially being used as cannon fodder in the world's largest war in history. The nation still retains their identity, even as they are gripped in civil strife. This song mourns their fallen, while hoping their innocence can remain strong." Yeah, you heard right, folks. In the span of a few years, these guys went from singing about sci-fi genocide from fucking Halo Reach or whatever, to, like, actual genocide, to war crimes, slave labor. Wow. I mean, honestly, what more can I fucking say at this point? Wow. Wow. Fucking wow. I know we are only halfway through fucking January, but honest to God, we may have already found one of the most intense and brutal albums of 2022. With all this in mind, I feel very comfortable giving this a 4.5 out of 5 and saying that this is so far the best deathcore album of 2022. If I really wanted to, I could sit here and nitpick that the production is perhaps a little convoluted and overwhelming. I could also sit here and say that the album's a little bit bulky, a little bit too bloated for its own good, but I mean, despite all of that, it never really got annoying or obnoxious, even on a high volume, and it also never got to a point where it really lost my attention. Like, I was glued to this thing for at least 95% of the time, and that's kind of a big deal, because my brain is, like, super fucking autistic, and it's impossible for me to focus sometimes. If I can focus on anything like 75% of the time, mission fucking accomplished. You know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean, otherwise I just sound like a fucking idiot right now. The point is, Shadow of Intent went above and beyond the call of duty with Elegy. It's just that fucking simple. They have created something truly incredible, something truly remarkable, something truly wow, as I keep saying. I very much look forward to picking this up on vinyl. I very much look forward to discussing this album in great detail with every single one of you, and I very much look forward to whatever the fuck Shadow of Intent does next, because at this rate, if they keep going the way they're going, I don't see why their next album could not be a straight-up fucking 5 out of 5 masterpiece. But obviously, we'll have to cross that particular bridge when we arrive at it, not before it. So, Elegy, 4.5 out of 5. Wow. Wow. Just fucking wow, dude. That's the whole score. Wow out of 5. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.